Welcome to the Financial Foundations podcast, your gateway to the fascinating realm of finance, brought to you by Base Wealth Management. In this show, we delve deep into the world of money, guided by seasoned experts who will unravel the complexities of finance and provide you with invaluable insights and practical advice. Now, here are your hosts, Dustin Taylor and Alex Wolfe.
Welcome back to the Financial Foundations podcast, brought to you by Base Wealth Management, where we are the foundation to your financial plan. I'm your host, Dustin Taylor.
I'm your co-host, Alex Wolfe, certified financial planner.
And today we have a question from Bill, who lives in Bradenton. He asks, I have about $1 million in my work 401k and roughly $200,000 in my brokerage account, and I'm about to turn 54 years old. Is that enough to retire? So basically what he's asking is, does he have enough to retire early? I think that everyone would like to retire early, but there's definitely some considerations that you should think about when making that choice. So first, we're going to get into understanding the early retirement finances and discuss the shift from earning money to spending money in retirement. So Alex, can you explain some of the main money challenges when people stop working? I think a good place to start would probably be Social Security, because it impacts that quite a bit.
Yeah, retiring early does impact Social Security. The first is, if you retire early, you're not able to collect Social Security right away unless you're on disability or something like that. So you're going to have a gap between retirement and when you can collect. And typically people in their early to mid 50s are in their prime money earning years, where they're making the most possibly that they've ever made, which is great when you factor in your Social Security calculation. You may be missing out on a decent amount of money by retiring early and how much you're going to collect in the future when you file for Social Security.
And along the same lines of that topic, why would it maybe be a good idea to slowly ease into retirement by working maybe a part-time job, and how does that help Social Security?
A couple of reasons to maybe slowly transition by working part-time or even working a different job at a part-time level. First is healthcare is a big expense on your own, whether you're seeking private healthcare, going to the marketplace to healthcare.gov, or COBRA are your three main options. Or if you have a spouse that's continuing to work and you can jump on their healthcare and insurance, that is an option, although they may just be deciding to retire with you or already retired. So the healthcare cost considerations is important. Also, when factoring in adding those additional years to Social Security could be impactful on your calculation and how much you're able to collect. Also, if you're retiring or thinking of retiring even earlier than 55, it's going to impact how you are able to access retirement accounts at a young age, because traditionally you're not able to, or there's significant consequences or things to consider when retiring early in the access to 401ks, IRAs, etc., and how to access your money that you've been saving up for all those years.
Right. And I want to go back a bit. You mentioned healthcare. So why is healthcare important in early retirement?
It's important because typically if you were self-employed and it's not that big of a deal, you just continue to pay your healthcare. But if you were working for a large corporation and your healthcare was being covered in part or in whole by your employer, you're going to have a significant increase in cost when you go to find healthcare for yourself. And it can be expensive if you elect COBRA. It could be expensive if you elect private healthcare, or you may be underwhelmed with the options of public healthcare. So it's definitely a factor to consider until you can get on Medicare at 65.
So in addition to healthcare, some other changes that may occur, like your spending patterns and how that affects your retirement savings. So how do spending habits change in retirement, and why doesn't the traditional 4% rule always work?
So the 4% rule is definitely a rule that was widely used for a long time, and it has its pros and cons, but doesn't always work in reality or in practice, especially when you think about what retirement looks like for you. Traditionally, people, whether they retire young or not, are more active in the early part of their retirement. And when you're more active, you may be traveling and spending more until you start to kind of reach that age where you're slowing down a little bit, but you're still fairly healthy, but maybe you're not going out or traveling in your lifestyle, which is your kind of slow spending years. And then as you age, healthcare costs go up. Maybe you have skilled nursing care or anything that requires significant costs. So you then again start to spend more as you age. So that looks like kind of a smiley face or an inverse bell curve where you spend a lot at the beginning, you slow down and spend less in the middle, and then start to spend more again at the end. And if you think that you're going to be spending 4% during those 20 to 30 years, or, people live a long life these days with modern healthcare, that 4% rule just doesn't always work. And we've seen that prove itself, especially when you have market volatility, and if you need more when the market's down, or, there's a lot of factors there to consider as well. But people tend to spend more at the beginning of retirement.
So in Bill's case, the answer to his question is a maybe. As usual.
Luckily, a maybe.
There are some things to consider and probably some things that he could do to up his chances to retire earlier to help him not outlive his money. What would some of those strategies be, just off the top of your head?
A couple come to mind. The first, and why we say maybe, has to do with spending and how much money it takes to allow you to live the lifestyle that you want to live. So for someone who, in Bill's case, he has roughly 1.2 million spread between retirement accounts and brokerage accounts, that might be enough for someone if they maybe have a pension, they live a low cost lifestyle, or maybe they live in an area that has a lower cost of living. In Bill's case here in Florida, you typically see a lot of retirees here because it's been advantageous for them from a tax standpoint, low property tax, no state income tax. So you see retirees come to places like Florida. So if Bill's case was he was living, in New York City, New Jersey, or somewhere with a high tax rate, it may be advantageous and improve his chances of retiring early if he were looking to move to an area that had lower taxes or in a lower cost of living. That can definitely improve the odds that he might be able to retire.
And given Bill's age, or anyone who wants to retire early, what are the considerations that should be taken in terms of withdrawal strategies?
This is probably maybe one of the more important factors in this question of Bill, is being only 54 and not young, and how you access your money when most of it is in his 401k. So traditionally, when accessing money from an IRA, you have to be 59 and a half. Hopefully our listeners have heard that or are familiar with that age. But when it comes to a 401k, you typically are allowed to access that money when you separate from service at 55. So at 54, it might be challenging. He might have to think about utilizing that brokerage account first until 55, or wait another year. But once he hits 55, once he terminates from service from his job, he can have access to that 401k without any penalty. If it was in an IRA and you retire early, there's a couple of strategies that have serious impacts. One is if you just take a straight withdrawal from an IRA pre-59 and a half, there's a 10% early withdrawal penalty on top of the income taxes owed. So in order to access money from like an IRA before 59 and a half, there's an IRS rule called the 72T, which is like substantially equal periodic payments, where you can take the same amount out every year until you reach 59 and a half, but not more and not less. If you break it, then you have to pay back all the money that the penalty would have cost. So there's ways to get access to the IRA money, but it can be difficult. And if you are needing a different amount of money during those years, you're going to have a hard time.
So can you or Bill retire early? Well, there are some pretty lofty hurdles in the way, with the most difficult period probably being those years between retirement and receiving government benefits. But to truly figure it all out, you obviously need to sit down with a financial professional and come up with a plan, have them run you through various scenarios to see if it's feasible for you and your specific situation. And we will definitely keep you informed through this podcast or on our website at basewealthmanagement.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel.
If you have any questions, please email them to us at question@basewealthmanagement.com. And as always, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening app.
Thanks to Bill for your question. And I'm Dustin Taylor.
I'm Alex Wolfe.
And happy listening.
We hope the expertise shared by our hosts, Dustin Taylor and Alex Wolfe, has left you feeling empowered and informed. If you're eager for more financial wisdom, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the show with your friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, stay sharp in the world of finance.